So to open an image, we go to File, Open. So we're going to find an image that we want to adjust in Photoshop. Okay, so let's say we're going to open this image in Photoshop. So now it's moved in here. What Photoshop does by default is it nests the image files up on top. So if I open another one, it will be up in top. So if you want to undo that, you can just click on that little tab and move it so that now you have the image kind of separate, not tabbed up at the top or nested up at the top. That's always important when we have several images in there and we want to be able to see them a little easier. Some people like them nested, some don't. It's a new thing in Photoshop 5 that came out. All right, so now we have this image. Always, the first thing that we want to do before we do anything else in an image is we want to crop it. On the left-hand side is a toolbar. And this toolbar has lots of stuff on it that you're going to learn as we go through the semester. If you hover over any of the little icons, it tells you what they do. That's the Move tool. Here's the Rectangular Marquee tool. Here's the Lasso tool. Here's the Quick Selection tool. And then here's the Crop tool. In most of them, they also have a drop-down menu behind them. So if you click on that, right-click on it, it gives you other things that are behind these tools, other tools. If you right-click on them, it shows you other tools there. Okay? But by default, the cropping tool always shows up, and it's the fourth one down. If you hover over it, it says Crop tool. I'm going to click on the Crop tool. And then I'm going to figure out in this image where I want to crop it. So you see that I get this little icon that looks like two brackets. And in the old days when we used to have to crop things, we actually used cardboard cutouts in those shapes and we reshaped things. But now Photoshop uses them to show that it's the cropping tool. So if you hold the left mouse button down and click and drag this across about where you want it to be cropped, you can, and then you can adjust it. You can take each corner and you can move it to where you want it, or up and down, or side to side. After you've done that, it doesn't matter when you've done it, you can always come in. Now, if I like how I want to crop it, I can either hit Enter or I can hit this little check mark at the top. The little check mark says Commit Current Crop Operation. If I don't like it, I can cancel it two ways, by right-clicking and go to Cancel, or I can come in here and go to this little icon here. If I hover over it, it says Cancel the Current Crop Operation. Almost every tool in Photoshop has this check mark and this little cancel button. So you can undo something that you don't like. So let's say I want to undo that. So I can either click in here and go crop or cancel, or I can just hit that. So let's go back and try it again. And I'm going to click it somewhere like this. Let's say I want it to be kind of even, so I'm going to scooch it over a little, make it even on the sides, and then say OK. So there's now my cropped picture. Always the first thing you should do in Photoshop is crop it. After I have it cropped, then the next thing I always want to do is I want to go over to my windows and I want to make sure I have two windows open. I want to make sure I have my history window open and my layers window open. Now the layers window has a check mark next to it. That means it's open. I want to click the history window. The reason for that is if I have the history window open, I can see what I've done and I can undo stuff by going back a few steps in that little palette. Can you guys see that little palette here? So if I come back to open, you see where it says open and then it says crop? If I come back to open, I can cancel what I just did, or I can come back and redo it by going back again and showing how I cropped it. Okay? So all the windows, the little palettes, move by grabbing onto the top edge, and you can move them anywhere you want. Okay? This is the layers palette. Now, we are going to have a couple layers because we're going to add some adjustment layers to this now. So we're going to come down to the little thing that looks like a yin-yang symbol, a circle with half black and half white. If I click on that, you see that a menu pops up, and it gives me a bunch of different adjustment menus I can use. So the first thing I always want to do with an image is go to Levels. So in Levels, if I click in here now, whoops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. If I come over to my Levels, where's my palette? you'll see here that I have my adjustment layer, and it's showing me my levels. So in here it's showing me what we call a histogram. And on this histogram we have the darks, which are the shadow areas, the midtones, which are the grays in the mid-range, and then the highlight areas is this white arrow. So the white arrow, a gray arrow, and a black arrow. The histogram, a good histogram usually has a bunch of stuff in the middle. It looks kind of like a bell curve. Not a whole lot of highlights, not a whole lot of shadows, but a lot of mid-range, but a little of each. This one is a little bit off because it's dark, right? So over here, we see that there are some unused pixels. All of these things in this histogram are showing you pixels. If I take the slider and I scooch it along, you'll see the whole image get lighter because I'm getting it up to about where the pixels really start on the histogram. I want to move that over to about where they start. Okay? So now if I click, now that I have this done in Photoshop, you'll see that I have two layers. I have my background image, and I have my adjustment levels. Okay? These little eyeballs next to the layers here are how you turn off layers. So you can turn off the look of each layer by clicking on that eyeball. So I can click that eyeball on and off, and I can see what I did in levels. So I brightened it up quite a bit, right? Made it have a little bit more light. Okay? Now I can go back in anytime I want when I'm on that layer, and I can adjust that even brighter if I wish. So I can come in and go, usually you don't want to get past where there's a lot of pixels. So I'm going to move this over a little bit more and brighten it up even more. Okay? And then I have that again on and off. I can switch it on and off. Okay? So that's an adjustment layer. That means now, when I showed you how the layers are like pieces of paper stacked on each other, I now have my bottom layer, I have a layer that I've adjusted. So now I can, if I want to get out of that and I say I don't like that adjustment, I can always click that layer off and it won't affect the picture. It takes it away. So when the eyeball's off, it also takes away the look on your picture. It doesn't show what you've done on there. Okay? So now I'm going to come over and say, okay, I want to add another layer. You should always do these. These are the main ones I want you to do for the first images we adjust. I want you to come in, go back to that adjustment little menu, and go to brightness and contrast. Okay, and you'll see that you have the brightness and contrast pops up here on the adjustment little layer. And so there's two sliders. In the mid, they're both zeroed out. So I can make it the brightness darker or lighter depending on how I slide it. The same with the contrast. So I'm going to make it a little bit brighter and a little bit more contrast. If I go too far, it starts to look wacky and weird and not natural. The objective I have with everything that we do in class is to make it look better and as natural as possible. So now I've come up, I've added it to be a little bit brighter and a little bit more contrasty. And so on that layer, now I have those two layers. So if I come over and I click that layer off, and then that layer off, there's what I started with. Here's where I went when I did the levels, and then here's where I went when I added the brightness and the contrast. So now I want to go in, I'm done, I think the image looks a lot better, so I'm going to go in and save this image. So I'm going to go File, Save As. Now, I'm going to save it as a TIFF. So there's already a TIFF here because I was playing with that earlier. So it's going to replace that because I already saved it. So I'm going to let it replace it and say OK. And it's going to ask me, do I want to keep the layers? And you always say yes. Of course you want to keep the layers. That's the point of having a TIFF. So now it's going to replace that image that we had, whoops, in here. Didn't mean to get out of that. So you'll see that it replaced the image and it's a lot lighter. So here we have the JPEG and here we have the TIFF. So this is the JPEG and here's the TIFF. So that replaced it with the image that we adjusted. So now I'm all done adjusting it. It's perfect. I have it as a TIFF. I'm not going to go in. I've already adjusted it, gone in a couple days and made it perfect. Now once that's open, should still be here. I'm going to go back in and save it again as a JPEG. Only I'm going to change the name of it. So I'm going to change it to, when I change the name, you'll see that it pops up automatically to the last name. Just highlight the whole thing and just say what you want to name it. It will automatically put a .jpeg on there. So I'm going to say save. Now on the file size, kind of go in the middle somewhere in the medium, and say OK. So now I have in here, I have my original JPEG. I have the TIFF file that I adjusted and made lighter. And then I have the JPEG that I saved from the TIFF file that I adjusted and made lighter. Okay, questions on that?